Are you somebody who's craving a taste of that luxury automotive lifestyle, but you really don't want to pay the premium for that name brand badge? What's good, everybody, and welcome back to another car review here on the driveway, where today we are out and about in the 2020 Mazda 6 Signature. Now, with a namesake like that, it's pretty fair to say that this is going to be one plush ride. But in our video today, we're going to take her for a spin and show you everything you need to know about why this could be the cure for that luxury craving. Alrighty guys, welcome aboard the 2020 Mazda 6 Signature. Now I'll be honest with you, I'm feeling a little bit of deja vu in this car because I've actually driven this generation of Mazda 6 beforehand, but that one was a 2018, this is now 2020. And I'll be honest, the philosophy really hasn't changed. You get pretty much every option you see here as standard, with only two minor exceptions. And handily, as always, I have the wonderful Maroni sticker for this fine automobile here. And the only two charges you will incur when you get one of these cars are the $100 charge for the carpeted floor mats, which I think is a bit absurd. And on this car, there is a $300 paint code charge for the machine gray metallic exterior that we have today. Now, there are only three colors that will incur that paint charge if you want to go with the Signature trim. That is Soul Red Crystal, the Crystal White Mica, and the machine gray metallic. So if you want either of these colors, you will have to be prepared to pay that $300 extra. All that said, on top of the $35,300 MSRP, plus the delivery, processing, and handling fee of $920, you're looking at a total sticker price on this example of $36,620, which is quite a bargain when you consider all the stuff that you get. Now, we'll talk about the options and features later, but Mazda has always been known for that zoom factor. So what I want to know for 2020 is, does this Mazda 6 still have it? Now, when I started driving this new Mazda 6 back in 2018, I will definitely say that there were a lot of things that stuck out to me as being very prominent and upfront features. And while this is a very beautiful looking car, it's packed to the hilt with technology, and it would rival anyone from the domestics to the Europeans. The thing that I wanted to find out most, though, was how well does this car perform? And I'm happy to say that the 2020 Mazda 6 still delivers on that zoom factor that the company's been known for. And it all starts with what's up under the hood. Now, believe it or not, the engine in this car started life in Mazda's 3-row CX-9. It then trickled down a little ways and finally made its way to the company's mid-size sedan. Now, it's a 2.5-liter all-aluminum SkyActiv G turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. Now, that's kind of the shortened version of it, because there are a lot of other terms like the dynamic pressure turbo that Mazda has listed on their fact sheet. But the numbers on paper are these: 227 horsepower and a massive 310 foot-pounds of torque. Now, while the torque is impressive, what's even more impressive is the variation in horsepower depending on what type of gas you use. Now, in this car today, I've got regular unleaded 87 octane. Now, that means I'll only be getting 227 horses. But if you were to run this car on some much more hopped up stuff like the 93 octane fuel that we have here in the US, you'll be getting 250 horsepower. Now, despite the difference in performance, the miles per gallon figure is actually quite comparable to a lot of other higher end sedans. You're looking at 23 miles per gallon in the city and 31 miles per gallon on the highway when running on either 87 octane or 93. And also, it depends on how hard you can keep your foot out of it, because the way this car gets down the road definitely feels like something out of Europe. Now, once you get past those rather surprising performance figures, the Mazda 6 drives just like any other mid-size car that you'll find on the market. However, there is one small gripe that I had right off the bat with this car when I first drove it back in 2018, and it's still the same here in 2020. And that is the fact that the Mazda 6 does feel a little bit more on the narrow side compared to other mid-size cars, i.e. the new Subaru Legacy, the new Honda Accord, and the new Toyota Camry, just to name a couple of examples. I do have a good bit of legroom in here, but at the same time, the floor seems to sit a little higher up than most mid-size cars. So therefore, someone taller like myself at 6'1", I do find myself to be a little bit more on the cramped side here than most other mid-size cars. However, on the plus side, the road noise is definitely bearable. It still is quiet and comfortable, just like any other mid-size vehicle. And of course, one glance around this interior, which we'll cover in more detail a little later on, feels like you're sitting in something that costs way more than the circa $37,000 price tag that I have on this example here today. Now let's say you're one who still has that taste of luxury in your mouth. You still want something like a BMW, an Audi A4, a Mercedes C-Class. Yes, those cars are definitely wonderful vehicles in their own right, and I have had the fortunate opportunity to drive all three of them. Now, if you want to sacrifice on features but still pay this kind of price point, then sure, go with the Europeans. But if you want all the technology, you want a very comfortable car that still has a very capable level of performance, and you want something that won't hit your wallet as hard when it comes to filling up at the pump, then the Mazda 6 Signature specifically is definitely a rival for any of those European badges. But what about the rest of the Mazda 6? What else does it have that really has that wow factor over the Europeans? Well, let's take a look at the exterior and the interior and see what else Mazda has in store for those who want a little bit more of an upscale flavor. Now, even though there's no denying that this design of the Mazda 6 has been with us for quite a number of years now, it still has that very elegant taste to it, especially here with this upgraded Signature trim. Now, between the 2018 that I drove a year or so ago and this 2020, like I said, absolutely nothing has changed, but I really do love a lot of the presence it has, especially here with the design elements at the front. Things like these, the full LED headlights here. So you do have the LED surround for the LED main beam. They are auto leveling and adjusting, as well as auto high beam assist equipped. They do have the LED turn signal running across the top portion, but I love the sort of bubble effect that they've given part of the LED daytime running lights. It really adds a nice little touch to the lighting system as a whole. Of course, this being the upper end trim, you gotta have some chrome, so there is a huge chrome surround that goes around the lower part of the grille and underneath the headlights, as well as a nice little lashing here along the lower part of the front bumper. The Signature does come standard with not only the front and rear park assist, but also a 360-degree around view monitor, the front camera of which is located right here under the Mazda badge. Now, finishing it all off is a large gunmetal gray finished grille, and I actually think it pairs very nicely here with the machine gray metallic that I have here on my particular test car. Now, if you want to talk about curb appeal, however, you have to take a look down here at these, the 19-inch dark gray finished aluminum alloy wheels. I really enjoy the design of these. I think they set off the design of this car very nicely. And of course, you do have the typical suspension, McPherson strut suspension in front, multi-link suspension in rear, four-wheel disc brakes all the way around, and of course, we are riding on some seriously low-profile Falcon ZX tires. Now, while the overall styling of the 6 definitely hasn't changed since 2014, if not just for a little bit of a facelift, the features list on this Mazda 6 Signature definitely shows that Mazda is headed in a more modern direction. Things like these, the body-colored side view mirrors, pretty typical of any mid-size car. They do have the LED turn signals on them, as well as cameras hidden underneath each mirror. Again, that's a part of the 360-degree around view monitor. They are power folding thanks to a switch on the inside. They do automatically fold in when you lock the vehicle. And of course, they have the blind spot monitoring with rear cross traffic alert. As you come towards the side, again, you do have the advanced Mazda keyless access system, which I am so thankful Mazda has finally replaced the key on this thing. I was so tired of that skinny little one that looked like a stick of gum, but instead now they've almost taken a page out of Volvo's book. So you have lock, unlock, release the trunk, and panic, all the buttons hidden here right along the side of the key with a nice little pocket-sized feeling to it still, because it's nice and slim. Now, you do have the buttons for locking and unlocking right here. There's no touch pads on the back of the door, so you just simply push the button once to unlock the driver's door. You hit it again to unlock all four, or if you go over to the passenger side, you hit that button once and that unlocks all four of the doors at the same time. And then last but not least, we do have a standard size power tilting and sliding sunroof up top. Now, in continuation with that theme of elegance with this Mazda 6 Signature specifically, some of the things I really like as we come towards the back, I love how smooth the transition is from the rear windshield down into the deck lid. Very nice smooth angle, and of course these Signature trims all get their own little lip spoiler here across the back. I'm not so much a fan of this car without the spoiler, so I really like that touch on it. As you come down here to the tail lights, these are full LED everything just like the front, so reverse lights, turn signals, and main brake lights are all LEDs. I do love the new font that Mazda has given their name badges as well, and then on all Signature trims you will get the Signature namesake underneath. Everything else is pretty rudimentary though. You do have the backup camera, so that completes the set of 4 cameras. You do have the SkyActiv G badge on the back, another one of the highly technical engines that Mazda has put in their cars lately. And then of course down below you do have the rear half of that rear park assist as well, finished off by the dual exhaust tips. Now this car doesn't make any form of a highly sporty sound. It's still a very quiet sounding vehicle, but you can definitely tell when you have a turbocharged one by the larger dual exhaust tips down there below. Now, in the sense you're looking for a mid-sized car that can carry a lot of things, the Mazda 6 may or may not be a little bit on the small side in terms of how much it can carry. You can open the trunk via the key or simply the touchpad under the Mazda badge. And when you actually open it up, the first thing that you're greeted with is an entry that does seem a little bit on the small side. You will notice, however, they have hidden the hinges back here, so you don't have to worry about any of your stuff being crushed underneath. Again, the rear seats are 60/40 split fold, so you just pull those tabs, they fold right down. But the numbers on paper are a little bit behind the competition. You're looking at 14.7 cubic feet of space back here. And again, I would deduce that down to the fact that this car is a good bit narrower than a lot of its competitors. Other ones seem to have a little bit more width in their overall design. The Mazda 6 is still a little bit on the narrow side, but however, you can still fit quite a few things back here, especially if you fold down those seats along with it. Now, as much as I do love staring at the outside of this 6 with its elegant design, I cannot fault Mazda for the way they put their interiors together. I mean, just if you want to sit in something that feels like it's a lot more expensive than it actually is, like I was saying before, take a seat in the Signature trim of one of Mazda's cars. I swear to you, you will not be disappointed, especially things like this, the parchment Napa leather interior that I have on this car. It almost looks white. It is so clear, it's beautiful looking, and it really complements the dark gray on this car as well. Down here on the bottom, 8-way adjustable power driver's seat with 2-person memory, 6-way power adjustments for the passenger side in case anyone's curious. And then of course you have a few other things. You have the beautiful Sen wood trim that they have put inside each of the Signature trims. And then of course you have all the typical controls. You have your power mirrors, which if you turn this switch all the way around, you can actually fold in the mirrors themselves manually. And of course you have other things, power door locks, window locks, and all 4 automatic windows. Now, I mean, if you just look around, one of the things that I like is the simplicity of how everything is laid out. Everything from the touchscreen, the climate controls, even things down to the control station for the infotainment system, and even what's directly here in front of you. Everything just makes sense and everything is where it's supposed to be. I mean, the steering wheel, for example, it's a beautiful thin rim. I love the feel of it in my hands. It's got a beautiful stitching around the rim. It, of course, is festooned with all the buttons you would think of, all your radar cruise control functions over here. Pushing in on the Seek Track button over here changes the information you get on the 7-inch thin film transistor display that makes up your entire speedometer. But other than that, hands-free radio controls and hands-free Bluetooth go along with that as well. Not to mention the paddle shifters that we have here on the back of the steering wheel, which does coincide with this car's sport mode trigger down here by the shifter, as well as the shifter's manual mode to go along with it. As you come over to the left of the steering wheel, or rather underneath, I should say, you do have the tilting and telescoping lever, which is hidden underneath. And then way over here on the far left, you do have a few little extra buttons. You have traction control, turning off the lane departure warning, the active parking assist on-off button, as well as a button to turn on the forward view camera even when you're stationary. And last but not least, you may not be able to see it, but way down here is the button that you actually use to release the trunk. Now, turning our focus to the infotainment system for a second, this is where I feel a lot of competitors do have a slightly bigger edge over this Mazda 6, specifically in terms of the functionality and display that we have up here on this tablet-like system. Now, this is an 8-inch screen, pretty common size actually in a lot of sedans these days, although I have seen some with as big as about 12.5 inches from corner to corner. And it does house the typical Mazda Connect system with your usual functions, so different applications. This system here is Android Auto Auto and Apple CarPlay compatible, so both users should be able to use the system no problem. Other things like your entertainment, that's Bluetooth audio, Sirius XM satellite radio, all that stuff. You do have your Bluetooth phone as well, along with a GPS navigation system, which I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of because I've seen systems that may not have the best graphics, but they are definitely a little bit easier to use compared to this one. If you want to do things like, for example, zoom in and out, you can go to the navigation settings here. It does have an auto zoom feature for the nav system, especially in 3D mode like this. And that does make it a little bit more complex to use, but at the same time, I don't know why we still have GPS systems in cars these days, because we have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, you have Google Maps and Waze that can do the same job as this basic GPS just fine. If you go back to the main screen, again, you do have the settings mode as well that can change all the internal stuff within. However, there is one thing about this entertainment system that I really enjoy, and it has to do with the tab called entertainment, and that is the 11-speaker Bose Centerpoint audio system that's in this car. I mean, it has such a crisp and clear sound. It's not the bassiest system that I've ever heard. However, it definitely is one that I've enjoyed throughout this entire week. Couple other things worth note up here specifically with the screen. Again, you do have the forward and rear view cameras, so if I put the car in reverse here, we do have a backup camera that I will say is pretty crappy quality. It definitely looks like Mazda needs to update this with maybe the lens from the GoPro that I'm using here. And then of course, if you put it in drive, you do have the forward facing camera along with that 360-degree around view as well. Now, as I was talking about earlier, I do love how sort of simplistic the interior of this car is. Aside from the fact that we have a smaller infotainment screen up at the top, I love this beautiful breakup in the dash with the ultra suede trim here across the middle. Again, standard on the signature trim, and of course that will be color coordinated with things like your Napa leather seats. As you come down below the infotainment screen, however, you do have a simple dual zone climate control setup, things like the temperature controls very clearly labeled, as well as the array of buttons across the bottom. Heated and ventilated seats, 3-stage for both of the front occupants, standard on the signature trim, as well as a heated steering wheel. And one thing that was a bit of a letdown, I didn't see anything for it on the window sticker, but I didn't notice any form of a wireless charger down here in the front. You do have a nice little storage cubby. As you can see, that's where I've put the key to this car for the time being. As we come back from that, however, we do have, again, the shifter that is connected to the 6-speed SkyActiv G automatic transmission. It has been an absolute joy to drive, very smooth through the gears, but definitely it gives you the crisp shifts when you want it as well. The shifter is very slick. I must admit, it doesn't really have a notchy feel to it. And of course, it does have that manual mode as well. So when you knock it over, you push it up to go down a gear, pull it back to go up a gear. And then of course, like I was saying earlier, you do have the sport mode trigger that lies just to the left of the shifter housing itself. And of course, last but not least, we get to the control station back here in the back. Again, buttons like the entertainment, so that's your audio, the home button, which takes you back to the main menu, nav, the back button, and then of course this little star button, which actually allows you to favorite certain features within the Mazda Connect system. And then of course you do have your volume button actually down here instead of taking up space up here on the upper part of the dash. Then you also have things such as the auto brake hold, as well as your electronic parking brake. And then you do have a smaller size rear compartment back here, which does house 2 USB ports, as well as a 120 watt 12 volt outlet back here in the side as well. Now, of course, being in the midsize family, the Mazda 6 doesn't just have to be comfortable for your front occupants, it has to be comfortable for everyone. Now, there are a couple of things that I will complain about back here. However, just look at that rear seat. If there was a little more legroom back here, which you can see there's not too terribly much of, and you'll see what I'm talking about in a moment, if you just look at the quality and feel of that back seat, I would say that was taken out of something European. Again, that's a theme that I seem to be reoccurring or just going back to here as I go through this car. Now, as you get in, you do have to duck your head a good bit. The roof line does seem to be a little bit low, as well as you might hit your butt on this slanted part right here. I've actually done that a couple times getting back here. However, in the rear seat, like I said, the legroom is definitely not the best. I'm sitting right here behind myself, so while I may be comfortable up front, I don't think a taller passenger like myself would be comfortable here in the back. You do have nice matte pockets, however, which I do enjoy, and you may also notice there's no buttons down there underneath those vents, things like USB chargers and stuff like that, because Mazda has actually conveniently hidden them here in the rear armrest. So you do have your rear heated seat controls on either side, got some sizable cup holders, and then if you open up this little flap here, you do have two 2.1 amp USB chargers to go along with it as well. Now, to those of you out there who have seen this car already and may be wondering, how safe is the new Mazda 6? Well, good news, people. It received a 5-star overall score from our friends at the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration. Now, it was a little bit of a mix-up, though, because even though it got a 5-star overall score, it got 5 stars for the front crash for the driver's side. However, on the passenger side, it only received 4 stars. It got 5 stars for the side impact rating and only 4 stars for rollover. So, while there are other mid-sizers that offer 5 stars in every category, if you want a sedan that's stylish but safe, this Mazda 6 should have you covered pretty well. Well, everyone, I hope you enjoyed this review and drive of the 2020 Mazda 6 Signature. If you guys liked this video or if you learned something today, please do give this video a thumbs up, and also while you're at it, hit that subscribe button down there below, because trust me, it will benefit the both of us in the end. But at the end of the day, I have to give a huge thanks once again to my friends at Mazda USA for allowing us the opportunity to reintroduce ourselves, to the high-end version of their mid-size sedan. But at the end of it all, guys, I hope you enjoyed the review, and I will see you all next time. Take care, everybody. Stay safe.